predator that's on the brink of extinction, mysterious snow leopard, fearless and tameless wolverine, worms that saw life, and much more. In this episode, you'll see the most dangerous and unusual animals in Siberia. Amur, or Siberian tiger. This handsome creature is listed in the Red Book. However, its level of discontent with what's happening is growing every year. I'll tell you why this is so. Let's start with the fact that the master of the Far East weighs from 400 to 675 pounds and can exceed 10 feet in length. This tiger is traditionally considered the largest living representative of the cat family. At the same time, this nuance is still unknown to the end. But what everyone knows for sure is that the Siberian tiger is the ruler of vast territories. A male tiger can rule over an area of up to 300 square miles. At least there's good news for all the creatures around. If there's enough food on the territory of the tiger, it will not go outside the house. But if there's a lack of big game, then anyone can get into trouble with this predator. Livestock, dogs, and many others. Despite its titanic strength and incredibly developed organs used in hunting, a tiger needs a lot of time to find food. The fact is that, on average, only 1 out of 10 attempts to attack is successful. Our usual guest approaches the opponent by crawling and either immediately gnaws into his neck, or if the enemy is bigger, it knocks him down first and then starts attacking with its teeth. If the attack fails, the tiger is likely to retreat. It doesn't like to continue fighting. For this wildcat, it's much preferable to disappear from sight and try to attack again from cover. Despite the fact that many people call Amur tigers cannibals, in the scientific community, this fact is considered a myth. They say that the Siberian hunter rarely goes out into the city and attacks people. On the contrary, the cat tries to avoid contact with us in every possible way. Here we've smoothly approached the irritation of the Amur tiger. Where did it come from? Because of the constant presence of humans in their lives? Do you remember what I said about 300 square miles for one male? Well, I think you realize that people cannot physically provide them with such a space in the conditions of the reserve. In close and constant contact with people, cats become extremely uncomfortable. They can't go outside, and poachers will be waiting for them there. How can one not be dissatisfied after such a situation? Brown bear. It's with this giant that the Amur tigers I've just told you about are often compared. And of course, this is not for nothing. The brown bear is one of the largest land predators and one of the most widespread representatives of the bear family. Despite all this, 3/4 of its diet consists of plant food like berries, acorns, and grass stems. Otherwise, the brown bear can attack both wolves and other smaller bears. As a super predator, our guest has few natural enemies. And, in a way, it's kind of strange. The thing is that brown bears are solitary by nature. The males live by themselves, and the females live with their cubs. Some scientists believe that this way of life is due to their laziness. They say that when you're alone, you don't have to worry and take care of your mate. As a result, you save calories. And since brown bears, as you already know, prefer plant-based food, their calories and fat are worth their weight in gold. Therefore, bears carefully store calories in their belly and successfully survive the winter with their help. The main thing is not to be confused. Brown bears are territorial animals. If they don't like something, they will immediately let you know about it. No one will tolerate strangers, even though they're lazy. As for the comparison with tigers that I mentioned in the beginning, it's aimed at finding out which of these two is stronger. Well, seriously speaking, the brown bear will almost always be the unequivocal winner in this fight. Firstly, the claws. That killing mill that's created by the bear because of the high-speed rotations of his paws will not leave anyone cold. No matter what obstacle it encounters, the pin-toed creature just has to only wave its paws to remove it. Secondly, the total weight, and as a consequence, the amount of muscle in the body. I think no one needs to prove that the brown bear has much more, not only fat, but also muscles. Taking all this into account, the tiger will have to make many times more effort to do even the slightest damage to our guest. The third point is endurance. If you remember, the cat immediately retreats if it feels that an initial attack goes off the script. As for the bear, It mostly doesn't care. It'll keep going until it comes out victorious. The fact that you can retreat or that you can think about attacking again and so on is out of the question. Thus, it clearly has much better stamina in battle, and this will definitely play into its hands. And the last, fourth fact for the brown bear is his armor. No matter how agile the Amur tiger is, any lucky punch from a bear will cause enormous damage. On the contrary, an oblique tiger will only feel a blow that hits an unprotected part of its body several times in a row. While someone is still fighting and proving to the others that he's the Lord of Siberia, the snow leopard lives its private life calmly, wisely, and tastefully, avoiding conflicts. This large and predatory mammal is considered the only representative of the cat family that lives exclusively in cold climates. The snow leopard, this is another name for this cat, it's characterized by a thin, long, flexible body, relatively short legs, a small head, and a very long tail. But still, the main distinguishing feature of this leopard is considered to be this stunning color. It's not easy to meet such beautiful cats. They usually live at an altitude of about 1 mile to 2.5 miles above sea level. However, it happens that they can be found even higher at an altitude of almost 4 miles. What things you can do for food. Yes, the snow leopard climbs that high and follows mountain goats and other ungulates. The only thing that can stop them is terrible weather when there's a strong wind and a blizzard. At such times, the snow leopards prefer to take shelter in a cave or in some rock crevice and wait out the weather there. Usually, these cats hunt under the cover of night, which is actually quite strange. It seems to me that they could just as successfully search for enemies in the sunlight. As it is, their coloring allows them to do so. Deerfly. What do you think? It's only huge and dangerous creatures that live in Siberia? Nope. The deerfly is as far from being the largest insect. However, that doesn't make it any less dangerous. Another name you may have heard of before is deer-ked. The deerfly, as I said, is not distinguished by its large size. Adults grow to no more than 0.3 inches in length. They have a flat and fairly smooth body with incredibly tenacious limbs. Our guest most often parasitizes deer, elks, and other ungulates. These insects reach large numbers just where animals are frequently found, on the edges of swamps and in forests of taiga type. They wait for the victim, sitting on grass or on a tree. When it passes by, they jump towards it. On the victim, the fly breaks its wings, burrows into the fur, and almost immediately starts to pump out blood. Unfortunately, the deerfly can also parasitize us. However, it does not do this on purpose. At least, scientists believe that the insect takes humans for familiar animals due to its tall stature. As for the harmful value, it's not fully understood. It's known that parasitizing in large numbers and regularly feeding on blood, these ectoparasites cause great distress to animals, leading them to exhaustion. In addition, they also inhibit the growth of young animals. Despite this, if it just parasitizes, there's generally nothing to worry about, except that it's far from always that the insect attacks. Much more often, as experts say, there are heavy attacks. Once the number of deerflies on one victim exceeded 100 specimens. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be attacked by 100 parasites eager to drink my blood. Leave a like if you too feel uncomfortable at the mere thought of it. Come on, I suggest that we move away from these nasty insects and get on to equally nasty, but in a different way, snakes. This is the Siberian pit viper, a venomous creeper. Its venom is not as deadly as that of many other more popular snakes. However, given the number of representatives of this species, the situation clearly does not look more favorable. The Siberian pit viper is distributed from eastern Kazakhstan through southern Siberia and up to Mongolia. The average length of the snake is about 27 inches. At the same time, the most important and interesting thing is, of course, the toxins of our guest. It's believed to be quite painful for humans. At the site of the poison injection and in the victim's internal organs, serious hemorrhages begin almost immediately. It's not pleasant, however, in about a week, it'll all go away. The good news is that, as a rule, there's no fatal outcome. Death may follow only when bitten by a very young organism or a person with allergies. As for the snake itself, I wish I could say that it leads a quiet life, but I can't. The Siberian pit viper won't be stuck for a bite. If it doesn't like something, it'll strike straight away. And our guest bites exactly at the target. It's the thermosensitive foci located on the snout that help determine the location of the enemy and the best area to attack. With their help, the creeper can successfully orientate even in pitch darkness. The main prey of the snake are small rodents and birds. Firstly, they're quite nourishing. Secondly, the toxin goes into effect almost immediately, and it's not possible to counteract it with anything. The victims go to the other side of the world almost instantly. It's no wonder that potential enemies of the snake I just told you about run away at the sight of it. But some, I'm sure, would never back down. We're talking about the wolverine, the most fearless predator on Earth. Let's start with the fact that although this animal is not famous for its bear-like dimensions, its size is relatively good, length up to 3.5 feet, and weighs up to 60 pounds. For a minute, it's one of the largest representatives of mammals. Of course, it's unlikely to grow to such solid dimensions in the air and grass. That means that the wolverine knows how to get a hearty meal. The secret of success is not in long training of attack and not in honing of fighting skills. It's her total omnivorous manners and absolute fearlessness. In the warm season, our guest eagerly eats berries, larvae, and small vertebrates. And when the summer is over, the wolverine switches to bigger prey and challenges animals that can be even 5 times bigger. What's more, the wolverine can even attack a fox. Only cougars, wolves, and bears can fight back the insatiable beast. And that, some people told stories with the wolverine squeezing food, even from an adult wolverine. It can bite absolutely anything with its sharpest teeth. The animal is provided with incredible agility that allows it to evade attacks, and the strongest character that gives it the ability to go to the end. All this makes the wolverine one of the most dangerous predators, not only in Siberia, but also in the world as a whole. In theory, before a battle, even other stronger creatures have their instinct of self-preservation activated that the wolverine is not even heard of. Strange creatures. What do you imagine when you hear this word combination? Some may take a wolverine for a strange creature. Others consider that it's the Amur tiger that deserves this title. As for me, I would confidently say that those are creatures whose essence people do not know yet. In Siberia, ancient drawings of unknown creatures were discovered that do not resemble humans at all. The images are thousands of years old. This makes the finding much more intriguing. What if they're aliens, or a species of animal yet unknown to science? Or maybe it's a hybrid that was wiped off the face of the Earth for some reason. Unfortunately, there's no exact answer to this question yet. All that remains is to delve into evidence and look for at least some clue in them. If you have your own variations on who might have been depicted in this drawing, be sure to post in the comments. And we'll go further and take a quick look at the amazing worms that scientists have successfully managed to resurrect. What do you think these creatures were? Could they be 100 years old? 2? 3? All right, 1,000 years old? You won't believe it, but these creatures have been hibernating for over 46,000 years. All that time, the worms were in the permafrost and somehow magically survived. Do you have any idea how unique an organism must be to survive such a stress? Their example is a perfect proof that life on Earth has a fundamental ability to persist for a long period of time. By the way, the modern descendant of this worm was found to have many genes that overlap with the genome of its distant ancestor, and most of them are related in some way to aspects of survival. If humans are able to study this question in more detail, perhaps we'll discover things we could only dream of before. Maybe immortality is closer than we thought. Caterpillars that seem to be inoffensive can be more poisonous than snakes. Fluffy insects can be seemingly deceptive. Beetles can be compared with a real weapon. Later on, I'll show you the most dangerous insects in the world you'd better not mess with. Look at this thing. It's hard to even describe what it is. As far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't go within a mile of such a creepy monster. It's written all over its face. It can do harm. But not everything in the animal world is so clear-cut. There are caterpillars, for example. They look very unusual, as if some branch came to life and began to crawl. Hardly anyone would take it in his arms, but you never know, people are different. In any case, this caterpillar attracts attention. If you don't take it in your arms, then at least you'll wish to come closer and look at it. You can look, but it's better not to get too close because it's a Linomia. These arms may seem soft and hairless, but it's in them that the danger of this insect lies. The arms of the Linomia are very sharp and contain poison. Scientists believe that's the only caterpillar in the world that can finish off humans with its venom. Actually, this isn't true. There are other deadly caterpillars, and you'll see them today. What's certain, Linomia is the most toxic. Its arms easily pierce the skin, poison enters the body, and in worse cases, it can lead to kidney failure, internal bleeding, and death. Even in the best cases, it won't be sweet. At the very least, burns, bruises, and poisoning are guaranteed. It's surprising that such a creepy caterpillar eventually turns into a very cute butterfly, silk moth. In this guise, the insect is no longer a threat. Linomias are also interesting in that they can be described as very nervous and twitchy. At least this is the impression one gets because they react very sharply to sound. Linomias like to gather in trees, and if you make a noise near a tree, the caterpillars will begin to synchronously twitch, rise, and move. By the way, it's a pretty good trick. By making noise, you can check if these dangerous insects are near you. This is another beauty from the insect world. It's called in different ways: woolly slug, pus caterpillar, or pus moth. It's not so important. Much more important is its unusual appearance. Caterpillar is really woolly and beautiful. Its wool is not at all as deceptive as the arms of Linomia. They may seem soft, but in fact hard and sharp. The puss wool is soft. However, this doesn't mean that we should stroke it like a cat. The wool may be soft, but underneath you can find very sharp and dangerous thorns. At the same time, they aren't strong and break from a light touch. This is even worse because the thorns end up staying in the skin and can lodge quite deeply. That would be a different matter if everything ended with that, but pus is also poisonous. Yes, it's not as toxic as Linomia, but there's nothing pleasant about its venom. The victim suffers severe throbbing pain that spreads throughout the injured limb and the body as a whole for several minutes. Then there are symptoms such as nausea, broken bones, sweating, headaches, and respiratory problems. In particularly severe cases, it can lead to anaphylactic shock and fatal outcome. And even if everything works out fine, the very unpleasant symptoms last from 12 hours to several days. So the contact with this insect may be remembered forever. Saddleback caterpillar. Whoever came up with a name for this creature is a genius. This caterpillar really looks as if it has a saddle on top of it. Saddle's bright, and the caterpillar itself is colorful. It'll be hard for impressionable people to resist the temptation not to take it in their arms. Anyway, it's definitely not worth it. You can see why you can't ride this bug. It's all about those hairs. They look like needles and are quite stiff. But the most important thing, sharp and toxic. Contact with the hairs causes a rash. If you're less lucky, you'll add nausea to the symptoms. And in some cases, everything can end up with severe allergic reactions up to anaphylactic shock and bleeding. This usually happens when the first aid comes too late. In order not to aggravate the situation, it's better to immediately remove these sharp hairs and clean the affected area of the skin from them so that the poison doesn't spread further on the body. As you know, caterpillars eventually turn into butterflies, and the swaddle toxin is not an exception. As a rule, butterflies are not as creepy as caterpillars in every way. They both look much prettier, and there are far fewer dangerous creatures among them. But that doesn't mean they don't exist at all. Butterflies are also worth being careful with, especially in Africa, where the African giant swallowtail lives. This is the largest daytime butterfly in Africa. Its wingspan can reach 9.8 inches. At the same time, it's often called the most toxic butterfly on the planet. These butterflies eat the leaves of strophanthus vines and get the poison from them. Scientists still don't understand how nature has saved the butterflies themselves and why they don't die on such a diet, but the fact remains, butterflies become toxic after the diet. Their bodies are filled with albane, a dangerous compound. The powerful force of the toxin is directed, of course, at the potential predators, birds and predatory insects. Sensing the approach of danger, the butterfly sprays a substance with a sharp, unpleasant unpleasant odor in the air, scaring away ill-wishers. For humans, this substance can also be very dangerous. This is evidenced by the fact that some African tribes use albane to hunt hippos. If it's true, then you understand. Hippos die from this toxin, then a human being, even more. Spotted lanternfly. What's wrong with this insect? Maybe it's also very toxic. Or maybe it attacks people by biting them until they lose their pulse. Actually, no. However, it's still dangerous to us, but in a different way. The spotted lanternfly is some kind of incredible pest and destroyer. This particular insect is affecting crops right now in the bad sense of the word. Spotted lanternfly is characterized by an insane voracity. These insects are very numerous, taking over entire areas, occupying plants and eating hops, apples, grapes, nut trees, willows, maples, and so on. The insects suck the sap out of the plant and it becomes weak and dies. Among other things, lanternflies release a sticky liquid that attracts other pests and promotes mold growth, doing even more harm to the plant. The lanternfly situation is especially difficult in the United States right now. Invasions of these insects bring huge losses and damages in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and so far it's almost impossible to do anything with these bugs. Sticky traps and many pesticides won't work on them. There's an option to get special wasps from China to eliminate the pests. Won't it turn them into a bigger nightmare? Speaking of wasps, why not take a look at one? Here it is. It's called a panda ant. And no, I'm not crazy or out of my mind. It's a wasp, not an ant, and absolutely, definitely not a micro panda. The whole point is that the wasp looks a bit like an ant in its body structure, and its coloring is the same as a black and white bear from China. And it is. These creatures belong to the velvet ant family. Although many people are afraid of wasps, ants scare much less people. As this wasp looks like an ant, there may be confusion. A person may try to get a better look at it. However, that's definitely not worth it. These South American wasps are considered some of the most dangerous wasps on the planet. If an ordinary wasp ever stung you, you remember how painful it was. In the case of the panda ant, it's even worse. Severe pain from stinging lasts 30 minutes, less pain about a day, and the affecting area keeps swelling a week more. Experienced entomologists say that only a few can compare with the panda ant in terms of pain sensations. In addition, it's believed that this insect can even finish off a cow. Panda ants are sometimes even called cow killers. However, this applies to all the velvet ants in general. Harvester ant. And now we have a real ant. The name fully corresponds to the essence. In general, there are different ants, but all of them, one way or another, are considered dangerous. Some simply spread on their feet a lot of bacteria and carry infections, whereas others have a very powerful poison. The harvester ant is the latter. Particularly dangerous in this regard, the harvester ant of the species Maricopa. According to scientists, the venom of this ant is 12 times stronger than that of the honeybee. The toxin consists of amino acids, proteins, and peptides. The ant attacks its victim ruthlessly and injects the venom as abundantly as it can. What's also interesting is when the insect stings its victim, it emits pheromones. These are picked up by the other ants in the colony, and fellow insects rush to support their fighter in the attack. So it's unlikely to get off with just one bite. Considering that it's much more painful than a bee sting, you feel uneasy. Harvester ants are even capable of killing humans, at least in theory. It takes 350 ants to sting a person. For animals, it's much worse. The same rat can be killed by only 12 ants. You can't get away from these insects, and it's not easy to fight them. What do? Why don't we just crush them? Well, we don't welcome this. It's better not to take anyone's life, but sometimes there are no other options. However, not all insects are worth crushing. Some may try to respond, even in the case with the bombardier beetle. The beetle's name speaks for itself. It's indeed a real bombardier and represents a living weapon. These beetles are able to shoot liquid at the enemy in a targeted manner. When threatened, the beetle secretes a poisonous liquid from its anus. It would be another matter if everything ended with it. What's more, this liquid is also heated up to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and its volley is no nonsense. The insect shoots in bursts at a decent distance, and the speed of the volleys is about the same as a real gun. Scientists can catch the firing only with the help of slow-motion cameras. Even humans can suffer from such bombardment. There's nothing to say about insects and small animals. The bombardier is able to shoot and drive them away in no time. The only thing that makes you happy is that you can wait out the bombardment. Bombardiers make from 10 to 30 shots. They run out of toxic substances in the body, and then they need time to recover or reload. It's not just cute and unusual insects that can pose a threat to us and other creatures. Other creatures are capable of doing so as well, from poisonous mammals to amazing sea creatures to immobile pillars of fire. What am I talking about? You're about to find out. Poisonous mammals are very rare. Apparently, nature has decided that mammals do not need toxins in their body, but nature also has failures. So there are a few such world beaters in the world. For example, the solenodon. This is a fairly rare creature that lives in Cuba and Haiti. Outwardly, they look like large rats with a very long nose. Although the animal looks funny, it's better to stay away from it. Its poisonous apparatus is compared to a snake. Not in terms of toxicity, though. It's all about how the apparatus is designed. The solenodon uses the venom for its prey, attacking small rodents and insects. For humans, the poison's not lethal but can still cause a lot of troubles, so you'd better not tempt fate and not mess with this animal. However, it's not so easy to find it because these animals are considered endangered. And here's another interesting fact. Despite the fact that solenodon is poisonous, it doesn't have resistance to its own poison. For this reason, the animals can die by accidentally biting itself on the tail. In addition, solenodons often die in battles with each other, settling disputes. This is probably why these animals are on the verge of extinction. What do you know about sea corals? I'm sure that many people think that they're just something like plants or even rocks on the bottom, nothing more. But corals are actually living creatures. They're cnidarians, that is, they're distant relatives of jellyfish. Some corals are not dangerous, whereas others can cause terrible pain. They're called fire corals, but I'd call them pillars of fire in the water. They don't move much, and of course they won't attack a person like a shark, but it's best to stay away from them because these corals are very stinging. Fire corals cause a very strong burn, as if in contact with nettles, but 10 times more painful. Divers say that it's like touching red-hot metal. After the burn on the skin can be left a noticeable scar, which is no longer nothing to remove. The burn itself is not fatal. However, from the surprise and pain underwater, you can lose consciousness. So, in theory and roughly speaking, the fire coral is quite capable of killing a person. The most insidious sea creatures are not even corals but mollusks. Nature has made many of them very beautiful, so impressionable people may try to swim up close to them, study them, or even hold them in their hands. Personally, I would not recommend you to pick up anything from the sea at all, and especially if it's something bright and colorful. There's the blue sea dragon, for example. It's a small gastropod. It looks like something not from our planet, and it had better actually live somewhere not on Earth. This mollusk feeds on cnidarians, including some very poisonous ones. Their venom accumulates in its body, and later the mollusk can defend itself by using it. The blue sea dragon delivers a stinging blow to the offender, and the victim gets seriously injured and traumatized. As far as it's known, this is not fatal. That's not always the case. Some mollusks are truly deadly, and injuries alone are not enough. For example, such a mollusk is the flamboyant cuttlefish. If you see it in the water, approach the animal by no means. Calmly swim away and get to shore. This external beauty hides an insane danger in the form of a wild poison. A single dose is enough to send 26 adults to glory. It's the same story with the blue-ringed octopus, one of the most venomous creatures not only in the ocean but on the planet as a whole. Its venom and the venom of the cuttlefish converge in action. It paralyzes the entire musculature, and the victim can suffocate in a matter of minutes. At the same time, it may remain conscious until the very end, but not be able to show or hint that it was bitten. It's a very insidious creature. Although the octopus is very beautiful, you better not go near it. Now I'll tell you about other dangerous inhabitants of our planet, sea monsters that stroke the whole world. Freshwater big creature. Questions about the largest freshwater fish are never closed. Some are convinced that it's the giant catfish. Others believe that the title belongs to the arapaima and no one else. Well, researchers from Cambodia made a new statement and said that the largest freshwater inhabitant was a miraculous 660-pound stingray. In addition to its impressive weight, the giant was also about 10 feet long. Such a large size in stingrays boggles my mind. I wonder how they managed to catch it in the first place. What do you think? After all, because of their unusual shape, stingrays must constantly come off hooks. Besides, once it's off the hook, no one will ever see this cautious fish again. It'll burrow somewhere in the bottom among the mud and wait out the dangerous moment. And when it wants to, it can attack anyone it wants to. The stingray has ampullae of Lorenzini, which allow it to sense the electrical fields of living things, determine their size and metabolic rate. Stingrays usually use them to catch things like small fish and mollusks. but they can also pinpoint your location as precisely as if the stingray were looking at you with its own eyes. But what will it do even if it comes across some other prey? Well, it's simple. A thin sting will come out from under the silt and quickly and confidently send the opponent to kingdom come. The tail of the stingray is a whole 16 inches of pure muscles, which also have a harpoon at the end. The tail accelerates to such speeds that it can easily pierce chest or skull. And even if the freshwater big creature misses and doesn't hit the vital organs, the target will still die, but not so fast. The creature's harpoon is venomous after all. It's scary to imagine how strong and dangerous this 660-pound stingray was, which broke the record. As I said, that stingray was a record breaker among its kind, but it's still a long way from being the largest freshwater fish, at least as long as there's a giant arapaima swimming around the world. On average, the size of this fish is about 10 feet long, but there are individuals that reach 13 and even 15 feet in length. Can you imagine such a thing? This king of freshwater environment is so confident in itself and its strength that it hasn't even been into conflicts lately. The arapaima leads the most peaceful life possible. Having reached such a size, the adult individual will definitely not get into anyone's teeth, and therefore there's nothing to worry about. By the way, do you want to know an interesting fact? The arapaima is one of the few fish that has remained virtually unchanged over a long multi-million-year history. That means that even 135 million years ago, this freshwater giant looked exactly the same. However, don't think that looking the same means having the same abilities. For example, in the course of evolution, the arapaima has learned to breathe air from the surface. A special coating of the pharynx and air bladder helps it in this. Yes, this ability is not unique, it's found in other fish, but still. And since I mentioned other fish, it's worth saying that they should definitely be wary of the arapaima, since it has an unrealistic size. At one point, it completely went crazy. It began to devour absolutely everything in its path just to satisfy its hunger. Sometimes its diet can be supplemented even by guests from the land, for example, birds that take baths or drink water. But don't think that the arapaima is the height of insanity. It has also some good traits. For example, it's one of the few fish that practices adoption of fry. The noble giants take even other fish offspring under their fin, raising orphaned babies together with their own ones. Red piranha. I think there's no need to introduce the piranha to you. Everyone knows that it's a predator, which together with its congeners is able to devour absolutely any target in seconds, setting a new world record for speed eating. And in case anyone didn't know, in the world of piranhas, these predators are divided into species. Among the dangerous fish, there are the most dangerous. These are red piranhas, also known as common piranhas. Yes, no matter how paradoxical it may sound, but common ones are the most serious. They're the owners of the bad reputation of freshwater predators, dangerous to both animals and people. Basically, their danger lies in the presence of a large mouth with sharp teeth protruding forward. They're closed very tightly, because of which the fish do not bite the food but literally cut it off like a razor. Usually, the jaws of piranhas are compared to well-sharpened scissors. And it'd be fine if it was just some kind of another dangerous fish that has sharp teeth, high speed and stuff, but it has a well-coordinated team. Piranhas live in teams and hunt constantly. Being a single unit, these predatory fish do not bite into the target at the same time, but attack it one by one. Thus, they're able to nibble their prey down to the bones in just a few minutes. And here, it's important to know the truth. Although piranhas have a great potential to devour any creature, this is not their initial interest. All the fish's attention initially relates to carrion, as wolves can be called orderlies of the forest, so piranhas can fairly be given the title of the Amazon orderlies. They promptly purify the water from the dead bodies that have fallen into it so that they do not emit toxic substances. Electric eel. If other fish can be compared to anyone else, then the electric eel is, in every sense, a record-breaking and most unique inhabitant of freshwater. The fish is the only one of its kind and is often found in the Amazon River. The size of its body usually reaches 6.5 to 8 feet, and its weight's about 44 pounds. The electric eel feeds on fish, amphibians, and if it's lucky enough, it can get some birds or small mammals. Scientists have been studying this natural wonder for decades and have only recently begun to clarify some details. By the way, did you know that the ability to generate electricity is not the only feature of this eel? It also knows how to breathe atmospheric air. This is possible due to the large amount of oral tissue of a special kind. It's permeated with blood vessels. To breathe, the electric eel needs to float to the surface every 15 minutes. It cannot take oxygen from the water because it lives in very muddy bodies of water where there's still very little oxygen. But of course, the main distinguishing feature of the electric eel is its electric organs. After all, it's with their help that this animal finds the target, determines where it hid from it in the murky water, then stuns it and sends it to Kingdom Come with a strong electric shock. By the way, to determine the location of the opponent, the electric eel also generates electrical charges, but they're very weak and in small radius around it. And that's not all it can do. In the arsenal of Zeus of the freshwater world, there's another series of low-voltage charges which it needs for communication. The electric eel is also capable of generating successive electrical charges, usually consisting of 2 to 3 high-voltage pulses lasting a few seconds. This method is used by the electric eel when hunting for hidden and lurking prey. As soon as 2 to 3 high-voltage charges are generated, the muscles of the lurking prey begin to contract, and the eel can easily locate a potential meal. The eel's final ability is something of a mini Armageddon. With its help, it releases up to 400 pulses per second, paralyzing everything in its path at a distance of up to 10 feet. That's all, guys. Which river would you never go into? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.